So, all right. So, coming back to The Voice, this is another criticism that people have of it, that it is in fact an extension of wokeism, and that it's going to set a precedent that will have impacts more broadly in terms of Marxist-style identity politics being implemented in other ways.
Well, how it plays out, no one really knows, but it's hard to see how it's going to play out in any good way, since no one can point to any likely good consequence. The only good consequence anyone ever points to is symbolism. You know, we can all be skeptical of that.
I think it was Jacinta Price in her maiden speech who said, you know, I've had my gut full of being symbolically recognised.
So you are seeing that some people in society, not because of anything they do, but just how they were born, will have an extra say on everybody else. And so if you don't want to call that race-based, it is sort of race-based, but if you think, okay, technically there is no such thing scientifically as race, based on characteristics with which you were born and have no control over, some people in society will get one set of entitlements and others will get another set. Now, that hasn't worked out well anywhere. You know, even India after World War II, that had a lot of affirmative action quota type thinking, they've gone away from it, right? It's not healthy. I don't really see how it leads to reconciliation. It's going to lead to bitterness. Yeah. And when this voice body, and I'm not saying that the judges will be activists in the first day or two. In Canada, it took the judges after 1982, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 years. A decade from now, the judges will start using this new provision in the Constitution. And by the way, it's going to get its own chapter in the Constitution. So we've had 44 constitutional referenda in Australia's history. 36 failed, 8 passed. And in none of those other ones were they proposing that we'll give the Constitution a new chapter. And I point that out for any lawyers watching, because when our High Court has become what I would call activist or adventurist, or they usurp the power of Parliament, it's often been on the basis, separation of powers doctrine, the implied freedom of political communication. It's been on the basis that, well, it's how the Constitution is structured and how the chapters look. So we're going to give them their own chapter. We're not even just talking about changing one section. We're going to give them their own chapter. There's no way this isn't going to be picked up on by some future judge and used in some way that undermines the power of Parliament.
Well, I wouldn't want to question the political neutrality of our judges in the future. I'm sure they'll all be very, very balanced.
It's not
given
even
what you said about the law schools.
It's not even political neutrality. It's how they see the world. It's how they believe.
Well, worldview.
Yeah, they all think they're morally, superior beings. Everyone tends to think their moral views are better than anyone else's. We're all born that way. But if you say to someone, what are the odds after 3.7 billion years of life on Earth that you're the pinnacle of moral evolution?
Yeah, probably not.
It's pretty unlikely.
Pretty unlikely.
We know in 100 years people will look back and go, what a buffoon. It doesn't matter what your views are. Now, if you think that that's because, people's moral sentiments change over time and you're no better than your grandfather, that's my view, fine. But if you think somehow you're morally great, your moral antennae vibrate at just the perfect moral frequency, and your great-grandparents are wicked beings, it's a weird way to see the world, and you cannot cash that out in any sort of plausible way.
It sort of is the way we're teaching kids to see the world today.
It's overly moralized, and it's just, we are lucky. We live in one of the best places in the world. You're just kidding yourself if you think there's ever been a better place in the world to live than the West. Let's say if you're a woman. Through human history, this is the best time to be alive.
Or if you're an Indigenous person.
Yes. Now, what happens is people point to flaws, and there are real flaws, but then they generalize and say, well, because of those flaws, we have the worst civilization going. Well, you got to be kidding yourself. Yeah. Pick where would women rather live, right? Or even if you're just talking about colonial enterprises, I can tell you the best place to be colonized was by Britain. Just look at Belgium. Just look at France. Just look at Spain. Just look at Portugal. And so, you have to be a little bit nuanced. Everything in history is pluses and minuses. Everyone's always making calls for the least bad outcome. Right. So the least bad outcome here is to get this voice body rejected, and rejected massively. And as you said in your introduction, one of the ways they're advancing this cause is basically to call everyone a racist who's against it.